Good morning and welcome to the Climate Action Network International Press Panel. This morning we are obviously very much focused on the latest draft of the Climate Finance Goal, which has come out and it's glaringly incomplete. So we have here today our head of political strategy, Jacobo Acharon, to go through the geopolitics behind this and what's at stake. Then we'll be hearing from our climate finance expert, Mariana, and then we'll be hearing from Omar for the African context and why this is so unjust and why developed countries need to act now because the clock is ticking. Over to Jacobo.
Hi, good morning, everybody. So we came here for an outcome that secures the financial needs of developing countries to address the climate crisis. That means a core public finance quantum at scale. The global north must start repaying the overdue debt of trillions, beginning with direct grants over loans, with at least 1 trillion annually in public finance. And today we see a text with no numbers. We have an X in all the options, in all the quantum options. Okay? And this is the elephant in the room. This is the key element missing of the draft that we are seeing today. Quantum is missing, which means that the ambition is unclear. Of course, quantum and structure goes hand in hand, and we will be talking about this, but as we heard yesterday of the head of G77, the quantum and the headline around that is crucial for this negotiation. As we see the text, option 1 is the only one that aligns with Paris. Option 2 still contains the very bad option of turning the NCQG on a global private finance goal that merges kinds of finance flows and thereby dilutes the responsibility that developed countries have in the Paris Agreement to provide climate finance. So it's quite disappointing that we are arriving to this last date of negotiations with such an either black and white situation. We are seeing all kinds of bad tactics developed by the developed countries to delay an agreement that will force developing countries to sign something that is against their needs, their values, and their sense of justice. Because developing countries, we think, are negotiating in good faith. They will not leave Baku without an agreement, and they are really staying on the table on this good faith. So for us, the ray of hope is that everything is still open. So we have enough negotiation elements in the text to have a climate finance goal that will meet the needs of the most affected countries and communities by this crisis and help to restore the trust between global north and global south.
Thank you, Jacobo. Now to Mariana for more detail about what we've seen in the draft text.
Thank you. I guess I can't, underscore how much this COP is really about that finance COP, and rich countries, they had just one job to do. It's lay out how much finance they're going to provide, but there's no numbers current on the text. We have 36 hours to go. So it's not just as a big elephant in the room, it's like developed countries are saying, oops, the dog ate their homework, right? So the clock is ticking, and as Jacobo was saying, it's really about northern countries, developed countries, putting the figures on public grants at scale on the table. So the new tax is really referencing the options that are at stake, and developing countries' options are clear there. When you look at option 1, is the only one that aligns with the Paris Agreement in terms of the quality and possible structures where we need to get. Now, just looking at a few more other details. Loss and damage, even though there are no clear sub-goals, which would be really essential to look into predictable amounts of money coming, loss and damage is mentioned in the text. Alongside, of course, when it's asking for a balanced, a clear balance, it is referring to the previous goal, which was only about mitigation and adaptation. So with still scope to ensure that it not only covers the mitigation and adaptation, but loss and damage as well. However, the floor is not there, so we can't just leave it in a way that leaves it could be in a voluntary basis. The second one is on revision. There is an option actually to revise this goal in about 5 years' time, as well as a bad option to only keep it in 10 years down the line. As we see the good options in terms of what we mean about grants-based and the scale, the predictability, etc. There's also the options that developed countries have been pushing forward. Ours is still on the text. So that emphasis on private sector is there. For example, problematic is the push for voluntary carbon markets, like green bonds, hybrid capital, etc. Or domestic resource mobilization. So this should really be excluded. So at this point in time, we still have some of the main elements to secure Paris alignment outcome, both in terms of that possible the quality, the revisions of the time frame, as I was saying, and also the exclusion list. We don't have a clear definition, but it's positive to see that that inducing new and additional finance as ODA has been included. Export credits are not counting, and other debt inducing. So in the next 36 hours, it will be really critical to ensure the right options that meet the needs of developing countries are really in the text, and this is the things that we'll be working towards to support developing countries in getting there.
Thank you, Mariana. Now over to Omar Almawi, who is going to give us some context from the African perspective. He is the convener of the Africa Climate Movement Building Space. Omar.
Thank you, and I want to begin by first echoing everything that my colleagues have spoken about passionately. And I won't go necessarily into the technical details because it's very early in the morning and some of us are still struggling to be awake. But after going through the text and considering why we're here, the first reason why we came to Baku to have these climate negotiations was that we are going to be discussing about finance. And me, while reading the text, the first thing that came to mind is like going to an excellent doctor and they tell you what the problem is with you, but they refuse to give you the medicine to be able to cure yourself from that ailment. And that's what's happening. There is no climate action without finance. We cannot do any actions on adaptation, mitigation, and any other climate responsibility without giving the finance that we need to put on the table. It would be funny if this wasn't actually happening in the world, but actually the people who are being affected the most are people from the global south. And something that we're not saying it more often than we should is that actually those are the majority of the world. Over 6 billion people right now are based in the global south. And it's very wrong that the global north, people that have contributed significantly to the problem that we're in today, to come here in these corridors for the past 10 or so days, having discussions that are leading to nothing. Because what we want to see is the money that's going to be utilized for us to do the climate action. For us, this is not an issue about statistics. It's not an issue about the numbers. It's about lives and livelihoods that are being lost each and every working day. I come from a community in a very small place called Lamu in Kenya, where they are fishermen and they're suffering from high sea rises. It's an island, it's an archipelago island, and everyone is worried about what's happening to them following the climate crisis. They've done nothing to contribute to this. So we want to remind them that we are enraged, we are mortified, but we are not hopeless. We know that we are many and they're the ones that they are the few. We know we still have pretty about 2 days to go, and we promise them that they are going to see the full might of the global south within these corridors, And even if we live here without them seeing the sensible thing to do and do what is their legal, moral obligation to provide the climate financing we need, we promise them that they're not going to rest in peace, because we are going to be speaking to them, we are going to be mobilizing our people, and we are going to make sure that they are no longer going to be utilizing our public resources, coming here as people who are purporting to be representing us and representing the interests of the fossil fuel companies. We are going to be speaking to them, they are going to feel us, and they should not feel that this is without any repercussions.
Thank you, Omar. Now we'll go to questions. If you could please say your name and organization. Front row, please.
Oh, really? Okay. Thais Galara from Climatica. As you mentioned, it's like we're only seeing delay pushed by some countries.
Sorry, could you speak a little slower and a bit louder as well?
Thais Galara from Climatica. As you mentioned before, it's like we are only seeing delay pushed by some countries. What do you consider should be the next step from the presidency to really make progress on a better text? Thank you.
Well, it is not just the presidency, but it is all the parties, okay? Of course, I mean, we are, as I was saying, I think we are unnecessarily delaying this all the way to the end, and we know that all developing countries groups are willing to stay on the table and not to do so. They want to leave Baku with an agreement, okay, which is very much welcome, and we understand the good faith on it. Then, of course, that puts pressure on the negotiation, because obviously, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, when we see here is as I say, it's black and white. We are seeing options that they were like this. We can talk 3-5 months ago. So it's been there for a long time. So on the presidency themselves, I mean, they need to be working on facilitating the process. But obviously, there is a need to come with an agreement that meets the needs of the parts. As we say, we are happy that the key elements are still there, which is still good. One of the things that I would like to add is that we as civil society, we've been out of the negotiation rooms from the last days, okay? And this is also quite difficult for us to see what is the attitude of the presidency and what is the parts. Of course, we have our intelligence and our people that can tell us what is going on there, but we are not able to be there to be exactly the details. And this is also part of all this negotiation structure in the black. I mean, we don't really see.
I guess the president faces a key question as well. Do we want Baku to be remembered as a COP that failed to meet the interests and the needs of developing countries, that might have put, profits before the needs, and really condemning them to have to, look for empty numbers or private sector or other things? Or do we want Baku to be remembered as a success that secure that public grants at scale to meet the needs for loss and damage, for adaptation, for mitigation? This is at stake, and that's why any result, any quantum without the quality will be meaningless, and they must deliver the quantum now.
Yeah, and to me, there's a reason why we've been saying the Paris Agreement, talking about Paris every now and then, whenever we're talking about climate issues. And that's because leaders of the world, representatives of the world, decided to put aside all their self-interest and come in the true interest of climate and come up with an agreement that we have been calling for the past 10 years, the Paris Agreement. And if we're not very careful for the presidency here, we will be leaving Baku and no one will remember anything about Baku except for how cold it's been. So we remind them that it's a time for them to create history in a good way, so that they don't just remain a small anecdote in history.
Gentleman at the back row, please.
Thank you so much. My name is Ioannis. I'm from Harvard University. My question is, with just few hours left, what happens if there is no strong commitment from the rich countries? And what message would you be taking back to your communities? Because as of right now, pretty much hope is fading away and communities are suffering. So what message would you take back to them starting from Monday when we leave Baku? Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think I will call them rich countries. I will call countries that are in serious climate debt, yeah? And if it happens that commitments are not coming to them, first of all, I said we are not giving up. We still have more than a day to go before we can, if anything, say that this COP was not a success. But if that were to happen, it doesn't necessarily mean that we are without any options. We are still, these are people who are supposed to be representing us. And my call to all of you is because there is someone here within these corridors that is having negotiations in the name of you as the people coming from those countries. So I really call it up to you to really make sure that they don't have any rest today, especially for those who you know are refusing to come to the table and putting the money on the table. Make sure that they know that whatever positions they are taking is not in your interest, but in their own self-interest and maybe other fossil fuel interests. So we are calling on you, please ramp up the pressure because the climate is in jeopardy. People are dying each and every day, and we cannot just put our hands up on the table and say we are giving up.
And if I may add, yesterday, Cannes organized a press conference, and we were honored to have the head of the G77, the African Group of Negotiators, and the like-minded countries, okay? And they were crystal clear on saying that an option of 200 billions is a joke. It's a joke for the countries, for the population in their countries. Okay, so we see the determination is there. As I say, we have the difficulty to see what is happening in the small groups, although we try to see it. But we hear clear determination and clear standing together on this demand.
Third row.
So, Nick Nuttall from We Don't Have Time TV. We've got 5 years to go before we halve emissions, or we must halve emissions.
Could you speak a little more slowly? Thank you.
We have 5 years to go before we're supposed to halve global greenhouse gas emissions. This COP looks like it's going to have some kind of outcome, but probably baby steps. Don't you think that the whole process of this COP process is actually completely failing to live up to the science of climate change and the reality of people in the world? So no matter what we get with the finance, it will never be enough. And in terms of cutting emissions, it's still not happening. I mean, this is a bigger thing than just Baku. This is actually the future of the planet, and we've got 5 years to halve emissions, and it's not happening, right?
I don't think it's right to blame the COP. Let's be very precise here. We're talking about the political will of developed countries.
Just one sec. I'm not blaming the COP. I'm blaming the people that turn up to the COP, right? Like the governments, right? So it's not the COP.
Yeah, the governments from rich countries, okay? We have seen in COVID, 14 trillion US dollars were dispersed overnight. We have seen how much money is 7 trillions have been used to subsidize fossil fuels. We have seen how much money was used to rescue banks through the crisis. I'm quite sure there is enough money out there, and what was missing is a political will for them to deliver. And this process is sending a really clear and crystal signal of what is the action needed. So come on, it is time for them to show their willingness to act. Honestly, it's black and white at this point. Where is the quantum on public grants that's missing? So in this time frame that you mentioned, there's plenty that can be done in terms of finance, and the finance is the essential component for all areas of climate action, right? And I think this is the thing we really have to underscore within this process.
You know, in Africa, we have a saying. It goes that when you have a herd of cows and they're slow, the one that's slowing them down is the ones on the front. But the ones that get canned are the ones at the back. And what's important for us to notice is that the Global South is made of over 130 countries that are in this space. And all of these are people who are saying we need finance. So the problem is not the COP, the problem is not countries, the problem is a selection, a fraction of the developed or so-called developed countries that are refusing to do their legal and moral obligations around climate change. And therefore, at some point, we have to call it as it is, because it's not necessarily the whole process, it's just a small number, a few of them that are refusing to do what's right.
Yeah, and on my side, to add, I mean, to what my colleague said, is, you know, this network, we are a network of over 2,000 organizations fighting around the world on daily basis to end with this climate crisis. Okay, what we are doing today, and you hear us, Matt, is fighting for a fair climate finance basically to fund all of this, okay? That does not mean that we are not fighting on different fronts. Last year, we were fighting like crazy against fossil fuels. Okay, and we keep on daily basis fighting for it. But now what is on stake, what is this day of whatever it is, 21st November, is a very serious issue, and we have very few hours to go. So this is why we're pushing right now like crazy for that.
And you know, just on the people who come here, you know, we had, what, nearly 2,000 fossil fuel lobbyists, 500 CCS lobbyists. They're not coming here for the good food. It's really expensive, right? They're here because we're making a difference. They wouldn't be here if the music wasn't playing. So we are making moves. You know, they laughed at us, they're now fighting at us. We will win.
Can I just clarify? I wasn't criticizing you. I was saying we've got 5 years to halve emissions, and we're taking baby steps at the COP, and the people that make those decisions are the governments, right? So I was thinking more about that. I wasn't thinking about Cannes International.
Any other questions?
Following, Omar, what you mentioned, that we need to name this from what it is. I know that it's sometimes not possible to mention countries, but which are you mentioned a fraction of countries that they really don't want this to happen. Okay. Yeah, like which countries are the ones who don't have the political will, like to put the money on the table? Because Omar mentioned like a fraction of developed countries.
Well, just look at all the submissions. There's not a single developed country revealed what is the quantum, what is the amount of money they're willing to provide on the table. This process has been going on for the past 3 years. They had 11 technical expert dialogues, 6 high-level ministerial meetings, etc. A number of developing countries have, you know, provided, explained how much money should be there and for what. Not a single developed country did that. So there you go.
Any other questions? All right, we can wrap up early. Thank you very much, everyone.